Welcome to the Pushing Shelves podcast. I'm your host, Nick Maciel, aka the Chief Product, and this is the podcast for real entrepreneurs and real business people doing real things, solving real problems with real solutions, with only real results. Oh boy, I got something stuck in my throat there. Real results. Okay, I am here today with Roger Roland. This is the president and founder of Miso Hungry, and this is an excellent restaurant organization that is spinning out just craft, in-house ramen noodle, appetizers, entrees, you name it, fusion food. They've got a great crew with them. They're doing food trucks now, so they're running around like crazy. They're about to move down to Florida from the Georgia area, so a lot happening. And this is a very difficult business to get into. So there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from running such a intensive service-based business that's very people forward. So this is right up our alley with the intention behind this podcast, which is to serve people with real, tangible discussions on business and entrepreneurship, especially in the in-person space. So welcome to the podcast, Roger. It's a pleasure to have you. What's going on, man?
Nick, pleasure. Thank you for having me on. First off, I think the introduction was absolutely where it needed to be. I think it serves you right to talk about being in such a difficult service based industry. It's very cutthroat. It's not your close the deal and then get your check. I mean, there's a lot of things that ride on not just the customer coming, but then like them coming back again and again and again is like dire to the success of my business. And so
Yeah.
I have to agree with you there, as far as it being such a cutthroat industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't affiliate market your way through, the restaurant business. And this is the this is the kind of thing is I'm not going to allow on this podcast anybody that has, another, just affiliate or marketing agency or any of that, funny business. They can make their money, but we like to promote real business here, people that actually go out and get it and follow the ways of those that came before them, their ancestors, real businesses that are founded on principle and on structure. And I think it's safe to say that entering a restaurant space is exactly that, and it is not easy whatsoever. However, despite that, man, the one thing that I notice about you, every conversation we have, every piece of content you put out, you've got this incredible positivity. You radiate energy. You're optimistic of a kind of guy. And not a lot of people know how much operating shit you have to do, like as the owner of this business. So where does that come from, man? Is it just, oh, I'm passionate about the business and that's where it stems from? Or is there something deeper, like as a kid? Like, where does your optimism, your level of energy, where does that come from, man?
So, it's an interesting question because, some people are going to be like, oh, one stormy night on a Saturday, the light just kind of beamed in my head. But for me, it wasn't really that. I mean, coming out of high school, I was more of a, hey, like I was in college, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't have like if you were to tell me fresh out of college I'd own a restaurant, I thought you were stupid. I mean, I was like, that was never something that I even registered of something I wanted to do. But as far as the optimism, what I've realized is um, you can either chase after money, which most of the time the word chase means you have to leave something else, or you can attract it. And so a lot of times having that positivity is it's more of a decision of what is my life going to look like when I wake up in the morning? Am I choosing? People say like, oh, this guy chose violence, but yeah, I mean, truly, I mean, you can choose your emotions, you can choose happiness, and so most of the time, if you choose I'm just going to attract goodness and I'm going to give out goodness, then that's exactly what you receive is what you put in. So I don't think it's something that's necessarily like a something that happened overnight, but I can say it was just something gradually. You just kind of learn to like, hey, yeah, I might have gotten absolutely uppercut, but at the end of the day, I got to be able to eat that and roll the punches. So um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the way it should be, right? I mean, it's not gonna, the pain's not gonna change. Things are gonna happen. Things are gonna pop up. And so it's like, how do I want to condition myself? Because as a CEO, you got to be your boss and your first employee. I always say, right? So it's like, you got to treat yourself with dignity and being optimistic and having fun is part of the process, right? It's a choice. So, I
absolutely.
mean, let's talk about your business, man. People need to hear. So, what does Miso Hungry provide? And what makes you different in the restaurant space?
Absolutely. Well, so the first thing was, I'm 21. All right. Most of the time, your restaurant
Crazy.
owners, your restaurant owners are going to be 40s, 50s. Either they just left a professional career, or they've worked in restaurants for so long and now they finally are getting to a point to where, for me, I wanted to take a, before this, I actually owned a marketing company and still own a marketing company. However, what I realized was I wanted to take what I learned with the marketing, put it into the restaurants, and have fun with it. Like all the time, restaurants are trying so hard to, oh, like, super prim and proper. You want to, we have such a high expectation, and we're like, no, like, I mean, on my shirt, it literally says socially acceptable nudes. Like that's like,
I
that's
love it,
just
man.
it's just we're just having fun, man, and the people that come in and get it, they have fun. They see the jokes on the wall, and so as far as what makes us different is, we're having fun. We're having fun. We're gonna give you
Yeah,
good food. We're gonna have fun. As far as what do we provide, um, of course, noodles is gonna be the is gonna be the big course of the noodle bar, but we
yeah.
actually in the town that we're at right now, our college football team, they call our spot the wing place, just because
Yeah.
our wings have gotten so popular. So I would say the biggest things are going to be our wings and our noodles. And now that we're in the food truck, we've got flame grilled hibachi, which is now
Ooh,
our new take on things. So
that's
absolutely,
fire, man. Enjoyable hibachi. I mean, that in and of itself is unique and entrepreneurial. And another thing too is like, talking about the wings. We were thinking of potentially partnering on that, and like, it's so crazy how like a noodle bar because I've gone to countless ramen places, right?
absolutely,
And the thing is it's just that. Or maybe I can get my little spring roll, or I can get my little, teriyaki bite, or this side of the typical, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But to be met with a place where I know I can pivot to wings in the same seat, because I crave wings all the time. It doesn't matter what I ate before. This is the
Absolutely,
exact kind of place that, and I'm sure you got a younger audience as well that comes in and like, I know that it's when I can enjoy an atmosphere, that's what's going to set it apart for me in terms of I want to go there on a Friday night, right? Because you
absolutely,
can serve ramen right now in my kitchen at home. You can serve me your ramen. You can serve me your ramen like, you can slip it to me at school or at work or wherever we are together, but it's another thing for you to slip me the same exact ramen, but in your location, which is what makes the ramen taste that much better. It's just the perception, it's the experience, it's the environment. Um,
absolutely.
so, speaking of that, of getting people through the door and getting them interested, how do you approach your customer acquisition? And of course, one of the things that I'm touting here on the Pushing Shelves podcast is we're very detail oriented on this podcast. So, literally like specifics, right? Like tips, things you've actually walked with. How do you approach your customer acquisition?
So initially, I think, especially due to a restaurant, and it's gonna vary by business by business, but specifically with anything to where you have a brick and mortar and a physical location,
Yep.
people underestimate the word of mouth like crazy. And so, and not just hey, go tell your friends, but if you're like, hey, like for example, my employees are my biggest marketers. And so when they come in, hey, I give you $5 for every customer you get. Every single one of your friends that come in here and order something, I'll give you $5. And that was something that was very, you know, very simple. They're like, oh yeah, I'll make an extra $5, but it really means the world because they text one friend brings two, three friends, two, three friends come in, they leave, they have a good time, they go tell two, three people, they come back, and now that one person now turns into 10. Um, and so that's definitely something that I would say people underestimate. Of course, um, especially in restaurants, and I'd be willing to say any kind of industry to where you operate on directly delivering to customers, the ability to be able to create an event out of nothing is extremely valuable. Like for example, we do video game tournaments like Super Smash Bros. And Tekken, stuff like that,
Love it.
and that was something that we got to a point to where now, the location that we just opened, we just closed that location for the simple fact of I couldn't have any more people in the door. I had to tell, and like if it wasn't your tournament bout, like if you weren't coming up in the next like 2 3 matches, like you had to
Yeah.
wait outside. I can't serve people that are outside. You
And
know
I'm
what I
sure
mean?
people that waited outside were cool with it and because they loved the whole thing anyway, so they stayed, you know?
Absolutely.
That's
But
crazy. Yeah.
the other part is a big thing with restaurants, and I'm sure any kind of any kind of business is going to be the same. If you're not in the door, like I can serve you food, and I had waiters, going outside on the curb taking people's orders, and
Love it.
people seriously sitting on the curb eating noodles. But what happened was I was getting to a point where I was like, man, all right, I've clearly outgrown this, but there'd be days to where if we don't have anything going on, the amount of customers would drop by at least 80%. And so if you
Yeah.
have something going on versus not having something going on, especially as a new restaurant, I think that's very important. Or any kind of new business is you have to give people a reason to come because you
Yeah.
haven't been there long enough for people just to come. Like McDonald's,
Yeah.
people are gonna come, and that's just it's McDonald's. But
Yeah.
until you can solidify yourself in the market, the most important thing is giving people a reason to go to whatever it is you're trying to sell them.
Absolutely. And the one thing I say that these large monopolies will never capture, doesn't matter how technology or marketing structures or AI or the scalability of these monopolized chain restaurants and just an example like Amazon and another niche, right? The reason that they will not succeed in a particular avenue, this particular avenue in particular, is exactly what you talked about, which is delivering an experience or being in an experience or event-based space. This is something that as much as they might try to commoditize, is something that they really don't have a firm grasp on that sets guys like you apart because at this point, right, I know that yeah, I could order on DoorDash, but yo, three of my homies are going to play Tekken at a miso, at Miso Hungry, like at a ramen bar. Man, I gotta come, right? And
Absolutely.
so you're re-socializing society in and of itself. I think it's a net benefit in ways beyond profitability and beyond business. I think it's literally people are finding their souls again. People are coming back and spending time together in rekindling in society. I think it's huge. Um, yeah, you want to comment on that?
I will say this was one thing that, for me, the first ever video game I ever played was on the GameCube, was Super Smash Bros. And so
Yeah,
I remember thinking the first time I came in here, and you would think, your video game crowd would be your nerds and like whatever. But I mean, there's like, I'm talking straight like, jocks, like, jocks
tax
coming
guys
in.
and
There's dads there. There's kids
yeah,
that are 13, 14. You had your nerds too, but I mean,
yeah,
it was like all of these people, and you've got this like middle-aged dad with his kid to the right playing next to like some 14-year-old, and the 14-year-old's kicking his ass. And
yeah,
like, this is the coolest thing ever.
yeah,
And so that was something that, like, man, yes, I'm in a business and I'm here to make money, but it really is a passion project too, because I'm almost reliving my childhood, except I'm
yeah.
creating the place for people to have these experiences. And I think that was something that's, very important, and you won't get in really any other business.
It's
um,
true.
so that was definitely something that was a big benefit with those tournaments. But to circle back to, staying on topic, the events are definitely going to be the thing that, whatever industry you're in, is going to be crucial to your success, because if unless you give people a reason to come, unless you're that good in the market and you've just been there for long enough, you have to get off your ass, and you have to find some way to get people to come to you. um,
Yep,
so and events
absolutely.
are a great way to do that.
Yeah, events and bringing food together is a great catalyzer. It's a great catalyst, right, for people to come together. Talking about obviously transformations inside your business, right? What specific processes have you implemented as a restaurant owner to transform the business? Just really thinking into the technicals of how the team combines with, the day-to-day, the operations. What are some things that if you were to get in a room only with other restaurant owners specifically, that you would impart that knowledge upon these people?
So this is something that, first off, is a good question. Secondly, this is probably the one of the things that haunt me the most. But this is the knowledge that, people pay for. This is the knowledge that, that you're asking about. The most important thing that I feel like I lacked initially was SOPs. And so standard operating procedure. Okay. I thought I'd be like, oh man, people know, man, come on, people know what it's supposed to look like. People know how long to cook the wings because I told them that one time. But what I've realized is unless you have a point to where I was being sarcastically specific by taking pictures of every bowl on the wall, sticking it on the wall. and all the way down. I mean, I'm talking everything. Where you put things in the fridge, where you put things in the freezer. That was something initially. If I did months ago, it was. I would say not having the lack of an SOP was about $100,000 mistake for me.
Yep.
Um, and in the first 6 months, 100 grand easily um, was not including the revenue. So I would say definitely the implication of an SOP, and then the enforcement of that SOP is definitely something that I would, um, that was a process that I would have implemented better. Secondly, I think another thing that, for one, a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in this day and age, think they can work from a laptop, and and yeah, there's a lot of guys that work from a laptop. I mean, I did it, but there's just a different level of, for one, passion for what you're doing, but secondly, the amount of impact you can make and how you feel, which is the most important thing to me when I go to bed. How when I'm recapping, thinking about what I did that day, what I could have done better, what I have to do tomorrow. But as I lay down, like, man, I accomplished something today, and that's
That,
something that you don't get working from a laptop. Like, you
yeah.
can, but it's definitely, it's so much more rewarding when you are out in the community and you're talking to important people. And so, I would say one of the processes that I did do very well was, I mean, to be honest, I got off my ass. I didn't sit behind a computer the whole time, and I was in it. And there are days to
Yep.
where some business owners, and eventually, some business owners will, they never want to work in their business. They want to work on their business, which I agree is that's how you grow a business. But until
Yep.
you understand the ends of your business, you
Yeah.
can't work on it.
Yeah.
And so either you have to find a really good team, or it has to be done by yourself. And I think that would lead into my final point about my processes. What would be, I actually had a meeting with he's a very big man in the community, in the town I live here. And I was asking him, I was like, what are some of the best things? He has a couple of restaurants, and I was like, what are some of the best things that you value as an, what are your strengths? What do you bring to the table? And he said, the end of the day, I'm just a really good finder of talent. And I think that was something that when he said that, it kind of opened my eyes. And definitely something I could do better, but I can say I did well was being able to find people to take things off my plate that, for one, are more passionate. Like social media, like, I don't mind doing social media, but I would rather not do that. I would rather somebody that enjoys, creating graphics and, scrolling through Instagram and finding, it's just the more things, finding somebody that can take that off, or and somebody that can make sure, like, for example, as we pivot into the food truck, making sure I have somebody making sure we have events that weekend and that next weekend and that month. And so finding talent would be my third thing, I would say, for the processes that I should have put in place, and then finally the ones I did put in place as well.
Absolutely. No, yeah, SOPs are so, so critical. And I mean, with us at Cadversity, I mean, it wasn't until we had any SOPs that we couldn't even fulfill with our contract talent and getting people on board to our projects, because there's so much involved. And I agree that if you're not outsourcing strategically, I think every business owner needs to be on fulfillment, and they need to at least patch themselves in if they're out leveraging their business as they scale over time. Because if you're not patching yourself in, you become so far separated from the ground based operations that a parasite or a cancer that begins at the bottom levels will metastasize through the business up through, until it hits you and the whole thing goes bankrupt, right? Like, so you can nip it in the bud early if you're really involved on the floor, even if the capacity or the level of that changes, right? And I think SOPs are a great way for you to install, like Roger installs Roger's brain in the operations of the team, right? And
Absolutely.
man, I've been in so many circumstances where I've seen managers, especially in the restaurant business, because one of my first jobs I worked at, I don't even think you know this, man. I worked as a bagger and cashier at a Chinese restaurant, making money under the table. So
Really.
yeah, man, I had the shtick. I had the short end of the shtick, right? And when I was doing that job, because back then pay was nothing. When I was doing that job, right, my manager didn't have systems in place, and there was actually a little bit of a language barrier, which added to it. So I thought I was doing things repetitively, like by the book, once I nailed it down, but I kept having to fight her threshold of frustration as a manager in this kind of like back and forth exchange into perpetuity until I had to quit the job, right? So
Wow.
it won't just be that people will be less efficient, it's that you might not know that they might be wanting to leave. Like turnover might be high because they
Absolutely.
feel like I can never get it right, therefore it's only a matter of time before Roger fires me. Whereas you're thinking they can't get it right, it's only a matter of time before they do, and I still love them, right? So
Yeah,
you get
absolutely.
this, right? You get this clash, right? And so with that being said, obviously operations is critical, but there's also the marketing, and you talk about events, which is huge, but then it's like, how do we get events out there? So more specifically, what actual like marketing systems does Miso Hungry leverage that work great, and which ones have you tried that just suck and blew it out of the water? You ran a marketing agency, so it's interesting to hear your thoughts.
Um, okay, so I'll start with tell you the things that didn't work. Initially,
Most things, right? Yeah,
yeah, right.
yeah,
Um, and this was something that with other clients, like I found success with, but with paid ads, like that whole avenue was just something that I just felt like I was dumping money into. And because at the end of the day, I mean, you can track it with, you can track, it with like an online, an online, like a funnel. You can see from acquisition to, seeing them look at the product or whatever, and then, if they closed or not on the sale. But with paid ads, it was just kind of, oh yeah, they clicked on it, and I'm just kind of guessing. How many of you guys came in on the Facebook? I can't ask every customer, hey, did you see
yeah,
my Facebook ad? Um, so specifically for my industry, I think Facebook ads or just paid ads in general, were definitely um, weren't a benefit for me. I'd
yeah,
even be willing to say, especially and we all know this, but content and social media in general is getting very super saturated. So it's something you really, really, really have to do something above the cusp, or just really far out there to
yeah.
get eyes on it, just because there's so many people. Like you have, I call them Hermosians, but Alex Hermosi posts like 80 pieces of content a week or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
You know how many guys are watching his videos, me included, but how many guys are watching his videos and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go post 80 pieces of content a week, which is great unless
Yes.
unless you're not doing that volume, and
Yeah.
so um I'm not saying go, I'm not saying don't post on social media or don't run paid ads, because yes, they do work, but
Yeah.
you really, really, really have to actually have a product that's um, I would say that's the number one thing. I think that's something that you do very well.
I
You
appreciate
have
it.
to have a product that actually works before you
Yes.
try to sell it. And so you're talking about marketing systems, and if you don't if my food tastes bad, people aren't coming back. You
Yeah.
know,
And
um,
the irony is that it's almost a business fundamentals equation rather than an advertising equation. And that's the thing, right? Because so full transparency, Roger and I talked recently about what if we get wings in front of some of the viewers in their home? What if they can buy it at their local store? Which, wink, wink, might or not be a possibility. Now, no guarantees,
absolutely,
but if we can make that happen, right? Now, that's an example where advertising makes sense because once you start getting in your first sales, you have a salient product where you can track UPC, you can track sales through your retailers, you can track
absolutely,
e-commerce driven sales, right? And so there's the business fundamentally, the way that that particular product was approached changed to accommodate that advertising method at scale. However, yeah, bro, like you don't know if Dale came through the door in the restaurant and if he was associated with the lead form on Facebook. Of course you don't, right? And it'd be
absolutely,
crazy to suggest that any restaurant has that in place, right? Now, obviously, there's your booking systems, your Yelps,
yeah,
your Open Tables, your right. But what's great is that that's just aggregated data, and so it's almost like your SEO for restaurants, right? And so it's much different than you taking your pay home, making something of it, than just putting that into ads and hoping it lands. It's very hard as a
absolutely,
restaurant owner. Moving beyond, I think it's very helpful for the viewers to know because they might make that mistake and now they can avoid it. Um,
absolutely,
I agree with you with the market being saturated. Part of this podcast coming out and everything I do and everything I push, and you know this, and like the content I put out, is I'm an exposer. I'm not a exposer on the level of A, B, and C individuals scam people and I'm not like that, right? But I'm very much a generalist in terms of there's two camps. There's marketers marketing the marketers and coaches coaching coaches, which is
Yeah,
90% of the stuff on Instagram. And then there's people like you and me where I'm talking to suppliers and distributors, negotiating with warehouses on the phone. You're in the
absolutely.
kitchen optimizing labor and recipes and handling your POS and making sure customers are happy. And it's a whole real business, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so with that being said, I want to touch upon Miso Hungry again. It's like, and this is ultimately what I want everyone to get from every podcast episode, right? Just to show the people how great a vision for this kind of business can be. What's your plans right now for expansion and growth? What's next on your radar at Miso Hungry?
All right. So, um, to be honest, I'm actually in a very transitional period of my life. Like I said earlier, um, the restaurant that we're at, we outgrew it. I'm like our lease ends. It's currently April 17th, I believe.
Wow.
We April 30th, our lease is up. So Friday we're doing like a final, you know, final shift of me hungry. You know, anybody that wants to come one final time, because we've been closed all this week, but I've gotten so many calls and they actually go to my phone. You know, they direct to my phone, and I've gotten so many calls of people just like, please, just one more day, whatever. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm
Wow.
gonna do this as kind of like a, homage, and then with the food truck. So I've been dipping my waters into, or my feet into the water with the first food truck. It's actually out front right now, and it's initially I'm trying to, just like in the restaurant, how I had to build a system in the restaurant and build out the SOPs and all that stuff. I have to do all of that over again, but all of the things that I messed up on and all of the things that I did really good, I get to copy and paste it, except now I don't have to worry about getting people to the restaurant. And that was something that
Yeah.
and this is me being honest with you. I'm such in an early stage. I've been doing the food truck for probably about 2 weeks now. I'm in such an early stage to where it's me, my girlfriend, and I might take one of my employees or whatever with me
Well,
to
that's
help.
great.
And I'm in there. I'm the hibachi chef back there. I'm whipping it up,
Yeah.
and it's because I have to learn the flow from the grill, and then once I learn the flow from the grill, I got to learn the flow of the assembly. Then I have to learn the flow of the customer experience,
Ooh.
and then at that point, that's
Yeah.
when you do it. So as far as my steps right now is figuring out the flow of the truck, and then the second I'm ready, I've got contracts after contracts after contracts with anything from music festivals to raves to all of that stuff down in Florida. Coming
Wow.
to the Tampa area, actually, we have what's it called? Soulfest. I think
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called in Tampa. We'll be
Yeah.
out there.
I'll link up with you there and we'll make moves. We'll make it
That'll be
happen.
excellent.
Yeah,
So, but
man.
right now, before I'm ready to take on these big events, I'm working on the flow, and like I went and I had to like, and this is something that hopefully the viewers can find value from this. But when I started, I had about probably about a 28-inch little griddle, and then I had another probably 24-inch griddle. Used that for one event, and I was like, man, I need a bigger one. So I went and bought a 3 burner griddle, and and then I used it, and I was like, man, I need a bigger one because I'm limited. The second you become limited, and I think this is use my griddle as a metaphor for whatever vehicle of income that
Yep.
you use, but I literally had to drill this griddle in, take it out, drop it down, drill it in again, take it out, drop it down again,
Yeah.
and had to kept getting bigger and bigger. And now I've got this massive like 4 foot griddle that I'm sure, to be honest, I'm sure I'll probably need to get a bigger one too. But I
Yeah.
mean, right now it's meeting the demand that I need. And what I've realized is, the first event, I probably made, first event I probably made, say $900. I got the
Yep.
bigger grill. I was able to do about $1,500 this past weekend, which was our first big weekend. We did about a $4,000 weekend, and so literally
Wow.
that's
4K
the difference.
weekends.
4K, and this is I mean, don't get me wrong. This was a Friday night from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. I was working.
Yeah.
Woke up at 6:45. worked until 6 p.m., took a break from 6 p.m. till about 10 p.m., was at the bar again from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., woke back up again at 6:30 and worked until about 4 p.m. So I mean, I fucking grinded, this past weekend, but it was one of those like, yeah, we we made good money that weekend, and so it
Yeah.
was that's something that now that I know that it's possible, now I need to figure out how can I replicate that. For one, how can I still, because I mean, to be honest, I'm still getting killed. Like I had to go get a fryer. I was still getting killed on volume. So once
Yeah.
I get to the volume of like, okay, I can do 8K weekends and I'm not killing myself. You know,
Yeah.
um, but it's also, I mean, especially as a 21-year-old, there's not many guys that can make 4 grand in a weekend, and then all
Right.
week. I mean, all I've been, to be honest, all I've been doing all week has been, well, I've been closing the restaurant this week, but after this week, like I'm, I mean, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I grind it out, and then I'm chilling, and so
Yeah.
Monday through Thursday, I'm doing nothing but planning and optimizing and just getting better for for what the next steps are. Um,
Absolutely.
and so, as far as plans, to circle back, because I know I kind of went on a tangent there,
Yeah.
but as far as plans on where I'm going, so I have a couple ideas because I know that trailer that I got. It's an 18-foot trailer. Um, I've been looking at one that's a 26-footer, and I'm thinking if I level up with that one, lease the old trailer, or
Yep.
franchise it and have, because there's a lot of people that like the name and the brand that we've been able to build. So
Yeah,
then,
man. Of course.
I go to some other, restaurant, hey man, 20-30 grand, you can buy into the franchise, you get the trailer, and then I get a 7% revenue fee, or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. And so I'm moving up because I got a bigger trailer, I got more toys to
Yeah.
play with,
Hey, if there's any listeners who want to franchise a food truck and hit those 4K weekends and the management cut is more than reasonable, I mean, listen to this podcast and reach out to Roger, man. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely.
that's
But I mean
incredible.
that was definitely that's one of the plans I want to move to, and then I've been looking in Florida for a location that is, I want something that's, it's not just a restaurant. I want an event venue that
Yeah,
serves food, if that makes sense.
right.
Um, and
You
so
want a hot
that
spot. You want something like a cornerstone of a community or something. Yeah,
Correct,
yeah,
correct. And finding those, especially in a reasonable, reasonable price, that's kind of what I'm looking for now. But those deals come up. So right now I'm in a plan of, okay, I have to get this stuff together. I have to close one restaurant down, grind out in the food truck, get this plan together, and then transition into a new restaurant in Florida. So that's that's where I'm looking at right now as far as the growth. It's funny you asked that question. I was actually writing out like my 1 year, my 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, for the truck, 2 nights ago. And
success
so
leaves
my,
clues.
what'd you say?
Yeah, success leaves clues. Yeah,
But one of the, that was definitely something that, that's my plan. And in this 1 year, I want to have 3 trucks running.
oh yeah,
Um, that's my goal for the 1 year, is to have 3 trucks running, and me not having to actually be in any of them, or choosing to be in them when I want to. That's kind of
yeah.
my
Of
that's
course,
kind of
man.
my goals.
Of course.
So
You know what's incredible, right? Is and the level of compounding that you've done is exemplary and very high in general for business. There's a thing where if you improve production in any business, if you improve production by 2% a day, just 2%, way harder than, way easier said than done, but if you improve production just by 2% per day, that's 3,700% improvement per year.
wow,
3,700%. Just 2% compounded per day of production, right?
that's incredible.
Yeah, and so the thing is, people, you got to kind of peg it and understand how that works in your industry. But you're already talking about doubling the surface area of the moneymaker, the griddle, and this is just one asset to the business. So your level of compounding is exemplary, which is exactly why I wanted to have you on the podcast, Roger. So just to close out, man, I want to do this for 5 hours, and you'll probably be back again because I mean the viewers are gonna love this. Where can we find you? All the touch points.
Um,
Go ahead and
you
promote
can you
yourself,
can
man.
you can find me everywhere. As far as social media, all the ats are going to be Miso Hungry Express. So MISO Hungry Express. Website Miso Hungry Statesboro. That's our founding location. MisoHungryStatesboro.com. And then as far as where you can find me, all over our Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, all that good stuff, we post where our truck's going to be at. And so we've been right now a lot in Georgia. We're just now starting to kind of trickle our feet into Florida. But
Yeah,
come summertime, we'll be rolling in the festivals in Florida just about every weekend. So um,
incredible.
North Florida, South Florida, come at me.
Oh yeah, it's a great place to be. All right, Roger. Well, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to all our viewers and listeners. This podcast is sponsored by Cadversity. Cadversity, Shark Tank in a Box. If you have a product idea, whether it's on a napkin or it's actually designed and patented, take it directly to the factory. Get it produced, get it put on retail shelves, get it sold on e-com, advertised, and developed with real engineers. Cadversity can be found at accelerateyourproduct.com. Once again, this podcast is free and fully funded internally. If you'd like to support the podcast, feel free to reach out to any of our channels at Pushing Sales Podcast or at Cadversity and reach out for a charitable, tax-free donation. And yeah, that's about it. See you guys for episode number 2. Boom, that's
Good stuff.
it.
That was excellent.